Hi, I'm Iris Muller. I'm a certified rehabilitation counselor and a proud mom of 2 children, one of whom has quadriplegic cerebral palsy and is nonverbal.
And I'm Alma Schneider, a licensed clinical social worker and the proud mom of 4 children, one of whom has Prader-Willi syndrome.
In this podcast, we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities.
Prepare to laugh, cry, and hopefully learn something new. This is 2 Moms, No Fluff.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to 2 Moms, No Fluff, the podcast in which we discuss the uncensored truth about raising kids with disabilities. With me is my friend and colleague and partner, Alma Schneider, and I am Iris Muller. Nice to see everybody again, and thank you for all of you that are joining us today for the first time. Today, our topic is
we are going to be talking about ceremonies, life ceremonies, milestones, and how that feels for families of children with disabilities.
Yes, and I have to say that coming from Israel, where there's a lot of kind of involvement of religion in ceremonies for marriage ceremonies and babies, I guess, naming ceremonies. That is also known as the birth for boys, and the happiness of a daughter for a girl. I come from a secular family, and many times it seemed like it's not going to be the right fit for us to celebrate in the religious way, because the messages didn't coincide with my own belief system. So I found myself many times in a position that we needed to kind of create a ceremony that would be more appropriate to our family. And I think this was a really good practice, because later on, when we had to plan my daughter's bat mitzvah party, which is a ceremony, a Jewish ceremony for coming of age, we had to use those skills and create something new that was tailored especially for her and her abilities and needs. So I'll share a little bit more about it later.
Okay, yeah, there are so many ceremonies in every culture, whether you're, Asian, in an Asian culture or a Muslim culture, Jewish, Christian. Every culture has ceremonies, rituals, and it might not feel comfortable to do with your child with a disability for a variety of reasons. If they have behaviors that you're concerned about, or, physical challenges. But everything, I think this will be the main point of this episode today. Everything can be modified so that you have an important milestone, celebration, ceremony for your family. It doesn't have to be exactly like it's prescribed for everyone else or what other people do, what you've seen. This is an opportunity, as Ira said, to be creative and to make it meaningful, whatever that means to you. So I'll use my son's bar mitzvah as an example. He read from the Torah, the Jewish book. He did not do the entire portion that a child would do, but he did it well. We incorporated a lot of our own personal things in there, like music. We had people from the community come, and I made a point of inviting people who had really been meaningful to him. And I didn't invite a lot of other people, and I might not have done that for my other children's bar and bat mitzvahs, but it was the participants I hand selected because they were important in our life with him. So even, going down to the audience or the people who are participating, you can create anything you want. And if people judge you, you know what? Who cares? Who cares? It's not their life. So just, there is a whole community out there for you to support you in whatever you want to do. So please remember that first and foremost. You don't have to do everything exactly like it was done for you or for people in your life.
Yes. I think that for me, what was helpful when there were opportunities that I needed to create my own ceremony for a transition, I guess, ceremony. What helped is that I looked back to kind of still my religious origin and the culture that I came from. And I handpicked the elements that seemed relevant to me, to my family, to my children. And then from those, I used other elements that fit better for our needs and our family. The thing is to try and put your child in the center of the event and think about the things that symbolize them to you in that ceremony and the things that would make them happy in that ceremony. And sometimes it's very easy to do depending on your child's ability and how they kind of function and what is their kind of circle of support. Sometimes it might be really, really hard and you reach an age and stage where the ceremony is kind of like a part of the, I guess, the normal routine for everybody else, and you're expected to or hoping to do the ceremony for your child too. Two things. One, it is okay. I'm giving you an okay to skip the ceremony. If it doesn't fit your need, your lifestyle, and it just puts more unnecessary pressure on you, it is okay. I'm sure it is fine with other people. If you decide to skip a ceremony, that is okay. But if you do decide to celebrate and you're stuck in that corner that, okay, my child is supposed to do A, B, C for this ceremony, or be able to accomplish Y and Z to prove that he's now an adult, or whatever it is that is the cultural expectation maybe around that, you can celebrate the passage of time. The passage of time, your child has been with you for, let's say, 16 years, and now you're celebrating her sweet 16. And even though there isn't any evidence of maturity or evidence of independence, you can still celebrate the passage of time. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Yes. Absolutely. And you don't have to do things on the schedule. For example, going back to a bar mitzvah or a bat mitzvah, we did ours, a year later. For my daughter, even, we had a COVID, we just missed COVID, but a lot of people did them way after COVID. You can do, if your child has a lot of anxiety, you can do your ceremony over Zoom if they don't want to be around other people, if that's a concern. There are so many ways to modify a ceremony to fit your family. And again, I always bring it up, but if you have community, it will be much easier and a lot less stressful because you'll have people to talk to about this. So let's say you have family members who are very opposed to you doing it in the way that you want to do it. You need to go to your community. You can vent, you can commiserate, and you can get the validation that this is something that you want to do or need to do. And there's nothing that can compete or compare to having a supportive group of people who really understand you and your situation. So that's, first, that's so important before you even start planning, an alternative type of ceremony. It doesn't have to be like everyone else's, because your family's not like everyone else's. And really, ceremonies are meant to be something meaningful for you and for the person going through the ceremony. So that's called, accommodating. So if you need to do that and you have family members or, friends who judge you for that, perhaps it's time to not focus on them for this part of your life.
Yes.
Don't tell them that I said that, because I don't want to get in trouble.
Yes, and I feel that when my daughter's bat mitzvah came and given everybody that was an event that was supposed to happen, I think 8 days into the first quarantine with the pandemic, and got canceled and never got to be celebrated. But the whole idea in mind was to, in that event, celebrate all of her team and the people that worked with her all of those years, the PT, the OT, the speech therapist, music therapist, art therapist, the aides that were with her, and to just use that time and space, not just to acknowledge the child, but all of those people, the village, you know, the people that really give their heart and soul into her success. And just thinking about this opportunity to invite those people, to give them a good meal that we paid for, to have them be celebrated for their amazing work for our child, things that they do that money can never compensate for, the investment of not just the time, but putting their heart and soul into my child's success. So I really want to invite you, when you're thinking about the events, to think about the stakeholders. Who are the people that really make this child who they are, and to include them in how you plan your celebration.
Yes, that's an excellent point. And we did the same thing. We even invited Lincoln's, the person who cut his hair, like people who really have watched him grow up. And, you know, like you said, the OTs and the PTs from school, and, you know, bus drivers, think people like that who don't typically get to be invited to something like this, but who are such important and integral parts of our child's life. It's a beautiful way to bring everyone together and bring it, you know, full circle, and just acknowledge people. So that's something that's very important for me in these kinds of ceremonies. It's like a thank you to the community, and the friends. You know, I invited a lot of my friends who don't even have much to do with Lincoln, but who have supported me to be able to support him. So it's really a nice way to bring everyone together for that. You know, and there are communions that people celebrate: first communion, second communions, marriages. I know some cultures celebrate when a baby is 100 days old. There are all sorts of ceremonies in the world. And again, they can be, if a child can't leave their house, bring the people into the house. They're, you know, and if you belong to a religious or a cultural institution, and they're not willing to accommodate, it's maybe time to think about, you know, switching, because this is not, this is about making milestones and celebrations accessible to everyone, because everyone has a need. And if your organization that you're affiliated with is not open to accommodating, you know, it might behoove you to check out some other ones in the area that might be more accommodating, because not every religious or cultural institution is willing to bend the rules. And you might need something that's a little less formal, or even the most formal institutions sometimes have excellent accommodations. So, you know, you do, again, you know, I hate to say do your research, because it's more work for us all to do. But again, have a friend do some research, have a family member do some research for you to see if there's something in your area or even online that is more accessible for you.
Yeah.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yes. And that being said, I wanted to say something. As you know, we moved a lot. And for example, when my son was born, first of all, we were in a place that we didn't have, you know, a big group of friends or family members. And it was really, really hard to celebrate. And I decided, we don't have who to celebrate with. We'll just skip. This was before the Zoom days, the happy Zoom days that we're all familiar with. And I wanted to say that you can have a ceremony just in your family, even if it's just you and your spouse celebrating, or you and your child, and you can do something and film it on video and just have a souvenir that you've made something. And if you are creating your own personal ceremony, whether you share it just with your child or spouse, or whether you do a big public ceremony with the friends and family, the things that you can rely on to kind of put the meat into the actual ceremony itself. And if you're vegetarian, excuse me for using that phrase, but
tofu into the ceremony.
Yes, exactly. So you just can rely on things that you are inspired by. I usually like to use poetry. Poetry for me is like a modern prayer. So use poetry, use music and songs that you are connected to. Use I guess writings of others. You can use quotes and the passages from books that you like and appreciate, things that are relevant to that specific transition ceremony. And if you are using your community to join you in that ceremony, think of the people that you have in your life. Invite your friend who's playing the flute to play the instrument while during the ceremony. Do like a 2-minute I guess performance. Invite your friend who's a good singer to sing the song that your child really likes, and by that you're bringing together your community, and you're also making the ceremony much more interesting to everyone who is involved.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And include, we've talked about this before as well, but including friends and relatives who may have disabilities in the ceremony and accommodate for them as well. So it's not just the person who the ceremony is for or about who might have a disability, but involving people who have disabilities and accommodating them. So for example, we talked about how Iris's daughter read poetry through her speaking device, her Toby, at Lincoln's bar mitzvah. There can be people who might be good artists and they have a disability, and but they are non-speaking and can't participate in that way. But you can string up their art at the ceremony so they can, be a part of it in that way. It takes some thought, but this is something positive and productive, this kind of thought. It's not like the grueling research. It's a way to, wow, how can we open up this ceremony to everyone who's important in our child's life in a way that's meaningful and personal? Because that's really what a ceremony is about. It's about intimacy. It's about people who care about each other. So however you can do that, whether it's through drawing, through music, through dance, through anything at all that just brings you, even playing a song on a phone that's amplified, that is important to the people in the ceremony or the child who's being celebrated. Just get creative.
Yes. And we found ourselves in the past having to translate to our American friends, to translate, let's say, the poetry from Hebrew, which was quite a task. But I think that it was a nice thing to be able to kind of share a piece of our culture with our friends that are in a different country. And in the same way, we did have two things that I think that people like doing usually in ceremonies, and that is sing together, like find a song that that most of the people are familiar with and they can join you in singing. And also something that I know you also have done in your kids' ceremonies, and that is like a slideshow in which you can show your child in different stages of their life, in different situations. And even if some of these are not like the best moments, but moments in which that the people in this room were there to help and support you, it's sometimes really touching for them to be reminded of those times. And in a way,
the old montage, the old photo montage.
Yes, and that's I think always a nice one. If you pair it with nice music, I think people always enjoy that. And I want to add one more piece about invitations. In the invitation to your event, you're always, I guess, able to add a small card and say in it, as you all know, Jake really likes musical instruments. However, to help me keep my sanity, I'm requesting that if you're purchasing a gift, make it something that does not make noise. Thank you in advance, or something of that sort, because you might be helping your guest to help you. And although I think sometimes we have to like come up with the odd requests. I think it is also kindness to let our guests know what can help us during the ceremony. And it's maybe not something that people usually do, but in our families, we sometimes need to do new things that people are not familiar with. And I think that most of the times it got well accepted by everyone.
Yeah. And on that note, we've mentioned this in other episodes, but a lot of kids who have disabilities have a special needs trust, which means that they have money that the family sets aside through, it's a legal trust that is money just for them. And it is not taxed or not taxed as heavily. And it's really important, as awkward as it might seem, if you are having your child participate in a ceremony where they're probably going to get money as gifts, to ask people to write a check to the trust as opposed to writing it to the family or to the child, because as awkward as that might seem, and it might seem tacky to do, to assume that somebody's going to give money, but there's a way to phrase it that if it is not necessary to give a gift, but if you choose to give a monetary gift, we kindly ask that you make a check out to the trust, because that money, if a child has too much money outside of the trust, they might not get services. They might not be eligible for services later. So you're really helping the family and the child by donating to that trust, gifting to that trust, as opposed to the family or just the child's name. So, I've gotten into discussions with people about, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's really tacky, but I've done it and people appreciated knowing that, because they would much rather give money that will be helpful to the child in the future than to have that money be punitive for that child so that they won't be able to get services later. So these are all awareness raising things that people simply don't know. And we have to educate. And again, it can be awkward. It can feel tacky. But I don't know, the longer I'm at this game, the less I care about stuff like that. And I just care. It's like, sorry, two moms, no fluff. There's no fluff here. If you're going to give my kid money, give it to the trust, because I can't deal with it. I can't deal with the other stuff. So, I probably would not be saying this, if my child were an infant, I wouldn't feel comfortable, but I'm giving you the strength and the validation that it's okay to do it if your child is little. And if you feel that your child's going to need a trust later, you know what? Tell them Alma sent you. If they have any issue with it or questions, they can come talk to me. But most people are not going to be offended by that. They're going to see, wow, there's really a need here, and I want to be part of helping.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think my words to kind of summarize everything is that if you're at this point that you are planning a ceremony, that you're thinking about planning a ceremony, sit for a moment with yourself and try to envision this. If doing the work of planning the ceremony, of having the guests come over and all that fills you with some hope and joy, then go through the trouble. But if it's another daunting task that only complicates your very complicated life anyway, you don't owe it to anyone to have a ceremony. Your child, by nature of being a child, would continue to grow and develop, and you don't have to invite the whole neighborhood to celebrate that. You can just appreciate it on your own. So do what's best for you as the parent first, and then think about everyone else. Alma, what else do you want to tell our guests today before we end?
I think we've covered it. It's just really, the main points are: do what feels comfortable. There's always remember that there are things that you can change or modify to make it more comfortable for you. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. There are things that you can modify to make it work for you. And again, this should be a joyous occasion. It shouldn't be something that fills you with dread and stress. This should overall be something positive. And if that means only inviting family members, your closest friends who really get it, then just do that. Like Ira said, you don't owe this to anybody. This is something that really is for you and your family and your friends, or, whoever's important to you. So, if you have people pressuring you to do other things, go to your community and get validation and commiserate, because there will be people who do understand what you're trying to do or what you're trying not to do. And that's all I have to say. And we'll continue talking about these kind of things, but we hope we've given you a little bit of guidelines and advice and support.
Awesome. So anyone who wants to share either in our online support group or wants to share on our online page on Facebook what you've done with your family and your children, and how do you celebrate transition ceremonies with your children with disabilities, we'll be delighted to hear and learn and get some new ideas. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
For more information, please go to www.twomomsnofluff.com. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe and give it a 5-star rating so more people can hear it. Thank you.